Hi, I'm Jill Kergan. I'm a newly hired librarian consultant with Peace Library System. Prior to this, I was the community outreach librarian at the Grand Prairie Public Library for a number of years. In that role, I worked with underserved populations and ran a number of programs for people with developmental disabilities. I'm here to talk about Coffee Club, which is a weekly recreational program for people with developmental disabilities. First, I'll tell you how the club got started, and then I'll provide some programming tips. I don't really have time to get into types of disabilities or terminology, so to keep things really simple, I'll be referring to people with developmental disabilities simply as people with disabilities. At GPPL, we had a lot of adults with disabilities coming in to borrow books and use the space, but they didn't really come to programs. If they did, they often struggled with the fine motor skills required and either became frustrated or lost interest. So in 2017, we decided to provide accessible programming for people with disabilities. Programming for people with disabilities can be a little intimidating for library workers. I had some experience, but I still had a lot of questions. For example, I wanted to know their interests and what types of activities they might be interested in. I also wanted to balance that with their cognitive and physical abilities, but I wasn't sure what they were. When developing programs for new audiences, I found consulting stakeholders and direct service providers is a good place to start. Eventually, we partnered with Centerpoint Facilitation, a local service provider who had experience programming for people with disabilities. The partnership was beneficial because they helped us identify the needs of people with disabilities in our community, choose age-appropriate activities, and advertise the program to their clients, which helped us reach our target audience. They'd also been involved in a survey to assess the needs of people with disabilities in our community. One of the findings was that people lacked social opportunities. They generally socialized with people within their service agencies and didn't have friends outside of their service agencies. They wanted to make new friends and maybe find a boyfriend or girlfriend. So overall, their needs weren't that complicated. They're just like everybody else's. They wanted to socialize and connect with others, which is pretty much what everyone wants at the end of the day. But the difference was they lacked social opportunities to make connections. We started Coffee Club to meet that need. We started the club in March of 2017 with a small group of 8 to 10 people. At first, we provided coffee and tried to encourage conversation, which was a little bit awkward, so we started doing icebreakers to get people talking. Eventually, we started incorporating activities like bingo and crafts, but the underlying goal of the program was to provide a safe space to socialize and make connections. Since then, people have been coming for coffee and conversation to literally and figuratively fill their cups. The program has met with unprecedented success. As time went on, the group grew and grew, eventually attracting between 60 to 80 people each week. We celebrated its 6th anniversary in March of 2023. The group is extremely diverse in ages, ethnicities, interests, and abilities, but there's a real sense of camaraderie within the group, which is really heartwarming to see. Despite their differences, people support one another socially, emotionally, and of course with the activities. It's a safe, welcoming space, and people feel comfortable being themselves. Over the years, Coffee Club has had a positive impact on the lives of participants. Surveys indicated an increase in overall wellness and community engagement. Support workers have noted that Coffee Club has helped improve their clients' social skills. Most people have met new friends at Coffee Club, and some people have even met boyfriends and girlfriends there. In terms of library use, Coffee Club has brought more people with disabilities into the library. Many stop in to borrow materials before or after Coffee Club, and it's become part of their weekly routine. They've gotten to know library staff, and they've come to see the library as a friendly place where they can ask questions and access things they need. Since Coffee Club started, staff have also noticed that more people with disabilities come to things like movie nights and special events. I'd say that Coffee Club has helped the library become a place where they really feel represented and acknowledged. It's where they come to see friends and they feel like they belong. Coming has both built a sense of community among people with disabilities, and it's also helped them integrate into the larger community through library use and attendance at other programs. Overall, it's helped build a more inclusive community. So that's the rundown on what Coffee Club is and how it started, and some general outcomes. Now some quick tips on how to get started. Look at what's being offered for people with disabilities in your community. Also notice what's not. That might be a good place to start. Then you can ask patrons with disabilities that use the library what types of things that they would want to come to. I'd also recommend consulting or forming a partnership with a direct service provider. They have a lot of industry knowledge and a lot of experience working closely with people with disabilities, whereas we as librarians typically don't. So we can really benefit from that, and they can help plan age appropriate activities. As you're planning, be mindful of other things going on in the community. So try not to duplicate activities that are already happening. It's best if we create new opportunities and serve needs that aren't being met. Also, try to schedule your program at a time that doesn't conflict with any other programs going on for people with disabilities. So if you can coordinate with other organizations, that would be ideal, just so people with disabilities can attend as many programs as possible. And once your program's planned, spread the word. It's really important to advertise to the disability community. Your partners can really help you with that. They can share the program with their clients and advertise to their user base. And you can send information about programs to support agencies. You can write emails inviting them to bring their clients and do some targeted advertising. And when your group gets more established, you can also take photos and with consent, post them on the library's socials to promote the club in a more fun and engaging way. As you start programming for people with disabilities, it's important to be mindful of the language you use. Obviously, don't use language that you know is offensive, but also avoid using words like stupid and special. So the table on the slide gives you an idea of what terms to use and which to avoid. I'd also recommend using person-first language. So person-first language puts the person before the disability, because a person's disability doesn't define them and they're people before anything else. So person first language sounds like a person with autism instead of an autistic person. So why is this important? Well, language shapes how we think about and perceive people. So just trying to be respectful in our language can help mitigate some of the stigma associated with having a disability. An alternative to person first language is identity first language, which actually puts the medical diagnosis before the person. So it sounds like deaf person, blind person, autistic person. So it's a matter of preference, even within certain communities, whether to use person first or identity first language. It might vary from one person to the next. It's best practice, unless you know how someone would like to be referred to, use person first language because it's generally considered more respectful. I find a lot of people are a little intimidated at the idea of programming for people with disabilities. I think they might be reluctant because they're not sure what type of behavior to expect. There's a lot of misconceptions about people with disabilities that are still prevalent. Some people think they'll be disruptive or maybe act out. But in my experience, that isn't true at all. In 6 years of programming on a weekly basis, never had to deal with anything like that. Everyone's always pretty respectful. Other people might think they're not qualified to run programs for people with disabilities because they don't have any experience, but the only way to get experience is to start. So my advice to you would be just to go ahead and start planning. Once you start and get a group together, you'll get to know the people and become comfortable. You'll develop a sense of what type of things appeal to your group. I'm going to show you a tool called the person-centered profile. It's a great getting to know you activity that I like to use at Coffee Club. So there's 3 sections: what people like and admire about me, what's important to me, and how to support me. It's used in hospitals and support agencies to help staff get a sense of the person they're supporting so that they're a person first, not just another person with a diagnosis. It's a really good chance to see how every person is unique. I used to have every person that came to Coffee Club fill one out. It's also a good chance for people to shape how you engage with them. You can learn some really useful practical information, like if somebody is deaf or has low vision or doesn't like being touched. And a lot of people take it as an opportunity to tell you how they prefer to be treated. It's like, let me make my own choices or don't rush me. So you can learn a lot and really get a feel for who the people are and what's important to them. If you use this, I'd recommend creating one yourself to explain the concept, and they're more likely to make one if you lead by example. I'm going to share some activity tips that I've learned from facilitating a coffee club. First, there is no one size fits all activity. No one program will be a good fit for everyone in terms of interest or accessibility. Not every program is a good fit, but every program can be adapted to be more accessible. For activities like Minute to Win It, accommodating could be as simple as just using bigger objects or adapting the activity so people in wheelchairs can take part. A lot of it can be thinking on your feet. Some people just won't be interested in certain activities. Certain things don't appeal to them and they don't want to take part. And they don't have to. They are adults. They might just come to socialize. I find some people just tend to want to color every session, and that's okay. They can. Um, the activities are totally optional. So I like to provide a variety of activities. Some people might engage well with hands-on, while others might prefer things like music, like karaoke, or dancing. Some people might really thrive with the physical activities. In the summer, we've done things like ladder ball and badminton and things like that. And that's obviously not going to be a good fit for the next person. We like to keep doing a variety to keep people with different interests engaged. I know that people have really surprised me. One person, I didn't hear him say 2 words for years. And we were doing karaoke one day and we passed him the microphone expecting him to say no, and he sang a full song and I was amazed. So singing certain things just really can bring people out of their shell if you find something that speaks to a certain person. So keep trying different things because you never know what person might come out of their shell a little bit. Just general programming things that have worked for us. Icebreakers are a good way to get people talking. We have a favorite people like, it's called Getting to Know You Bingo. You kind of have a descriptor in each box, like find a person who is wearing red, and you have to find a person that's wearing red. It gets people moving and interacting a lot, so it can be fun. And you can also reuse it a lot. You can put different things in the boxes and do it, say, maybe once every 3 months or something like that. Challenges. People tend to like challenges because people get to work together. So there's a social element of collaboration. And also, if people are in a wheelchair or they may not be as vocal or take part hands on, they still feel that they are part of a team and participating, and they can collaborate and celebrate any victory together. It's usually best to try to have someone available to kind of show people how to do basic craft. But if you do have instructions, try to include photos. A lot of photos or photo instructions would be ideal. And final tip, take suggestions and welcome feedback. Feedback is important. I try to formally survey people once or twice a year. I like to survey participants and also support staff. I find that support staff can have some really great insights and ideas for how to better engage their clients. When creating a survey, try to use really clear language that can't be taken in another way. For example, on one form, I put, is there anything else you'd like to share? And I got a lot of answers that were like potato chips, hugs, snacks, stories, things like that. So just try to be clear. A lot of people at Coffee Club are not literate. Their support workers will help them, but it's kind of nice for them to be able to do as much as possible. So maybe include things like emojis, pictures on your survey so they can take part as much as possible. It's also helpful not to ask for an answer on the spot. So if people don't fill out the forms, you could encourage them to take them home and think about it, because some people need more time and they might come back with some really great ideas. So on an ongoing basis, you can just informally ask people if they have any ideas when it comes up in conversation. They might find that less intimidating. You can also ask them just if they're enjoying the activity. They would probably be more likely to tell you while they're doing it or struggling with it rather than on paper, like at a later date. So, and also ask because sometimes it's not obvious. Some people might really be enjoying it, but they might not appear to. So, and just try to welcome suggestions and conversation, be approachable, and try to be supportive of any ideas. Lastly, I'd like to talk about community building. And by that, I mean building a sense of community among participants. Tips on community building: meet regularly. Try to make it part of their routine. So people will come to associate Wednesdays with coffee club, and it gives them something to look forward to throughout the week. Some people will do things to prepare for it, like bake things to bring, and it's just something to look forward to. The more people meet, the more they get to know each other, and the more they can come out of their shell and feel comfortable in the community. Second, learn people's names. It's nice when you can greet people with their name. It's more personal. It makes people feel good. Celebrate holidays and birthdays. If someone tells me it's their birthday, we've made a point of singing to them. So I sing a lot more than I'd like to, but I think it makes people feel valued and like part of a community. Some people like to bring their birthday cakes to coffee club to share with the group. So that's a nice thing that we've been seeing more of as well. I also like to celebrate holidays. There's something about celebrating with people at Christmas and at holidays and at certain times of year. It just builds memories. Over the years, you develop your own traditions, and that time of the year will kind of remind you of the group.
This is G, and he's going to perform a prayer song for Stephen.
Another thing you can do is kind of create opportunities to volunteer. Let people know that you're open to having them teach or perform. We have one person who's very into art, so she volunteered to lead a class on collage making. So she taught the group that day. And there's another person who is an amazing singer and drummer. So for Indigenous Peoples Day, he performed and did an amazing job. We enjoy watching it, and they're proud of teaching as well. So I love the idea that they're learning from each other. For volunteer opportunities, some people might just want to volunteer to help wipe down tables or stack chairs. And that's really important too. It also gives them a sense of purpose and kind of community integration, because on Wednesdays it is their job to come to a coffee club and help with the chairs. There is a sense of community and responsibility. Our group is very diverse, so I think it is important to celebrate diversity. We have people that identify as non-binary in the group. We have Indigenous people. We have people of all cultures. So I think it's important to celebrate things like Black History Month, Pride, and Indigenous Peoples Day. Ultimately, people want to feel seen and represented, and it's good to support them and just show our appreciation for different cultures. I'd recommend involving other organizations. Shortly before I left, we partnered with the art gallery, and they've been a phenomenal resource. They're in our building, and they have materials and expertise to share with the group, and the group absolutely loves all the different projects that they have come up with. So That's a great partnership. And if you are not doing anything on an ongoing basis, you can still have people come in to talk about things, to lead activities. I think the more that you bring people in, the more comfortable they are maybe going to that space in the community because they may have a connection there. So that's another form of community building. Another thing you can do is start a Facebook group. It's obviously not going to work for everybody. Not everyone's on social media or has technology skills, but it can be kind of a nice thing to do for people that are on social media. People like to see pictures. I try to take pictures and post them on social media. Some people will tag Coffee Club and say, oh, I had fun at Coffee Club. Here's some pictures. Who doesn't like to see and comment on pictures? It feels good when people like them, and it helps people feel like part of a group. Another thing we like to share are posters for community events, things going on at the library, basically anything that people might enjoy to get them out and about in the community. And another good idea is to find ways to keep in touch. So the Facebook group, and we also have an email list. So try to get people's emails so you can kind of send updates and notifications. Try to keep it easy. You can have pen and paper sign up, or you can get fancy and like make a QR code. That's really helpful for some people, and other people are very old school. So just try to have a few options. So that concludes the presentation. Thank you for coming. Be sure to check out the videos. They're very fun and give you a sense of what the group's about.